Hey guys, welcome to History Behind the Warrior, and today we're going to be talking about King. Now, a very long time before he donned the Jaguar mask, he was a simple street brawling orphan from Mexico. It was essentially the only thing he knew when he was growing up in the streets. One day he was severely injured and collapsed in front of a monastery. He would be luckily saved by a priest. King would then realize the error of his ways and begin starting his new life as a Catholic priest. King would then begin dreaming of building an orphanage for street children, hoping to save them from the life that he originally had. Thus, he would begin training as a professional wrestler. To distinguish himself from other luchador-based wrestlers, he would wear a Jaguar mask. Now, during his wrestling career, he would have a very tense rivalry with another luchador wrestler called Armor King. Wanting the money to build an orphanage, King would enter the first ever King of the Iron Fist tournament held by Heihachi Mishima. The rivalry between these two wrestlers would meet their climax at the King of the Iron Fist tournament. Now, during their battle, King would accidentally injure Armor King's eye. Nonetheless, he was able to defeat his rival in the end, managing to get third place in the tournament. Although King didn't win, he had won enough money to build himself an orphanage. Now, after the orphanage was built, King looked after many of the children that were brought up the same way he was. That was until one of the orphans died within his care. This would deeply affect him, and he'd actually retire from wrestling, throwing his mask away. King went into a drunken depression, ending up at a bar every single night, drinking his sorrows away until he was found by Armor King. His rival convinced him to return back to the orphanage he had once owned, as the children were still in need of him. Armor King would also convince him to go back to training, as the King of the Iron Fist Tournament 2 was approaching. Thanks to his pep talk from his friend, King was able to fully recover from his depression and alcoholism, training intensely to earn more money for the orphanage. It's left unknown how far he got in the tournament, but King did not win. When he returns back to the orphanage, he was praised as a hero by the children. During his few remaining years at the orphanage, he would begin teaching the children self-defense. Now, many years later, Ogre would arise. Now, Ogre is the god of fighting and begins traveling the globe, killing many of the world's best fighters. Sadly, King is one of the many fighters to fall against the god. Now, one of the orphans that King brought up would hear of this news. Realizing that the orphanage would crumble without any source of income, he would don the mask of King and imitate his style. Unfortunately, he lost every competitive match he entered. One day he would be approached by Armor King, who was interested in teaching this new king. For the next 4 years, the two trained together, with the new king quickly surpassing the old one. The second king would then enter the third King of the Iron Fist tournament. He believed that by entering this tournament, he'd be able to test his skills against some of the world's best fighters. It's left unknown how far he participated in the tournament, but King did not win. After the events of the King of the Iron Fist Tournament 3, King would learn that his master Armor King had been killed in a bar fight. King swore vengeance against the man who was responsible for this, Craig Marduk. King would then bribe Arizona State Penitentiary in order for Marduk to be released, wanting to punish the man that was responsible for killing his master. He would then wait for Marduk in the King of the Iron Fist Tournament 4. The two would clash, with King beating Craig Marduk so badly that he had to be hospitalized for his injuries. King would go to the hospital that Marduk was being held at, and was going to deliver the final blow to kill him, until he saw a portrait of Marduk with his family. Knowing the pain that his parents would feel, King would spare him, realizing that revenge was not the answer. After the events of the previous game, Marduk would begin donning a black Jaguar mask much like Armor King. Disgusted by Marduk's actions, King would seek out to defeat him once again, saying that they would settle the score at the King of the Iron Fist Tournament 5. Now, during the tournament, he would fight Julia Chang, with Julia trying to convince him to not hurt Marduk. But King refused to listen to her, not having an action like this go unpunished. Julia would attempt to stop King, but King was able to defeat her. And 2 wins later, he would be face to face with Marduk once more. The two battled, with King once again defeating Marduk. Marduk conceded in defeat, and King offered his hand in friendship, reconciling the difference between the two. Now, not long after this, King would learn that Craig Marduk had been attacked by a man that looked like Armor King. King was furious to hear this, and was determined to learn the true identity of Craig's attacker. With the world now engulfed in a war, King gave up looking for Marduk's attacker. That was until he received an invitation from Marduk inviting him to the King of the Iron Fist Tournament 6, with the two hoping to find out the truth of this new Armor King. King would enter his room containing a framed picture of his deceased master. King would accidentally drop the framed picture, and this would shatter the glass covering it. Upon analysing it, he would realise that there was actually a secret photo concealed behind the original, the picture being that of two Armor Kings. King would seek out Marduk, who was currently in a graveyard digging up the grave of the original Armor King. After seeing the dead body of the original Armor King, he would stand up and turn around asking who the assailant really was. The perpetrator would then say he is Armor King, nothing more, nothing less. King would then arrive at the graveyard and join the two, asking the assailant who he really was, as this did not add up. Marduk deemed this situation as stupid, as he can clearly see the body and he had killed the original Armor King with his own hands. This Armor King then reveals to the two that he is in fact the brother of the original, saying to Marduk that he would never forgive him and that their business is far from finished. And that's really it for King from Tekken, guys. He's one of my favourite characters of all time, and out of the Mishima Bloodline feud in this game, this is probably my favourite story arc. Now King does return in Tekken 7 Fated Retribution, but at the moment Craig Marduk and Armor King have not yet been announced for it. But I'm extremely looking forward to seeing how they continue this story arc. I love how kayfabe isn't dead to King, but then again I guess
it's still real to me, damn it!
Wiser words have never been spoken. Anyway guys, here's a preview for next week's episode.
I want to know the ultimate purpose of the fight. My scar burns.
So yes guys, we're going to talk about Sagat from Street Fighter next week, as this was heavily requested by you guys. Now as always dudes, please comment, like, subscribe and share this video with everyone you know, and I will see you guys next time.